We gathered tonight to remember the children who died, those who were injured, and those teachers, staff, and students who were witnesses to the gun violence that descended upon Cleveland School 30 years ago today. The tragedy has had its long-term effects both locally and nationally. It was inescapable then and inescapable now that the easy availability of guns, including weapons of semi-automatic destruction, has been the proximate cause of tens of thousands of deaths in our country. And sadly, mass murders at schools have occurred again and again. In the 3 decades since Patrick Purdy released a torrent of bullets from his AK-47 semi-automatic rifle into a schoolyard full of children. The shock and revulsion at the Cleveland school shooting changed the public's view of gun laws, and then it led to changes in the law. 4 years earlier, Assemblyman Art Agnos had come to a Stockton gun show with a twice-convicted felon to demonstrate that both could buy .32 caliber Beretta automatic pistols without showing an ID, much less having a waiting period or a background check. This kind of Saturday night special was used by the Zebra serial killer to shoot Art Agnos himself in 1973 as he left a community meeting. The Assemblyman introduced legislation to require a waiting period and background check for that type of gun. He also introduced a bill to ban semi-automatic military-style assault weapons, including the AK-47. The bills encountered total resistance from the NRA, with Republicans almost uniformly opposed and Democrats split. Agnos brought an AK-47 into the hearing room in the Capitol to show legislators how intimidating the weapon is. The NRA objected to a gun in the Capitol. So Agnos returned with a plastic Uzi-styled water gun purchased at Toys R Us and squirted the legislators. But neither publicity stunts nor impassioned pleas from the families of victims nor the evidence of gun violence in our state could overcome the conventional wisdom that gun control was just bad politics. The bills were defeated in committee. Then Cleveland School happened. The public reacted, and so did its political leaders. This civic auditorium was the venue for a public memorial service for the 5 slain children. Among the mourners were many from out of town, including from the state capitol. The debate was fierce and the vote very close, but in that very same year, 1989, the Roberti-Roos Assault Weapons Control Act was passed by the legislature and signed into law by Republican Governor George Deukmejian. When he died last year, the Sacramento Bee noted of the Iron Duke, as he was called, his soul searching after a 1989 mass shooting in a Stockton schoolyard led him to buck the National Rifle Association and pave the way for California's landmark ban on military-style assault weapons. Nationally, it's a different story. In 1994, the federal assault weapons ban became law. Regrettably, it had a sunset clause of 10 years, so currently there is no federal prohibition on sales and ownership of these weapons. On a sunnier note, Janet Gang, the teacher who was shot, championed the creation of the Children's Museum of Stockton. Pat Busher, principal of Cleveland School in 1989, remains a very active member of the Children's Museum Board. Now celebrating its 25th year, it remains a living memorial to Cleveland School and a joyful place for children to play and to learn. Tonight, Cleveland School remembers, and so do all of us.
Our next speaker is new to our area. Dr. John Dacey became the superintendent of Stockton Unified School District June 1st, 2018. He is the former superintendent of Los Angeles Unified School District, Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, and Prince George, Maryland, and Coventry School, Rhode Island. He is widely published and has won numerous awards, including Superintendent of the Year, High School Principal of the Year, and Teacher of the Year. Please welcome Superintendent Dr. John Dacey.
Thank you. On this somber anniversary of the tragedy that befell our community, my new community, and especially the Cleveland community, it's appropriate, I think, tonight to remember and to take stock and review lessons learned. While we are 30 years out from the terrible event at Cleveland, we have been unfortunately reminded annually and often the simple lesson about guns in schools is still not learned in America. A gun has only one purpose: to kill. Schools have only one purpose: to become prepared for lifelong learning. Lifelong and life-ending are simply incompatible. Shortly after my wife and I moved to our new house here in Stockton, I visited the Children's Museum on Weber, and I saw the beautiful entrance and the amazing exhibit, and I scheduled time right away to bring my own grandchildren for a visit. What I did not know immediately, however, was the reason that it was built. Any community should revel in an opportunity for young people, all young people, to go to such a museum. And no community should have to construct a beautiful museum because it knows that some youth would never have been able to enter. There are more guns in America than people. At the current rate of gun deaths, there'll be more than 339,000 people in America killed. That's more than the size of Tampa, Florida by 2020. America has more guns per capita than any nation on earth. And thinking recently of Parkland, it's little wonder that we are now watching large numbers of students and young people in America standing up saying enough is enough, organizing gun control proposals, socializing large promised demands to keep safe in their schools, and marching and demanding of national politicians that they do not want to die in their school. The history of student and parent voice about the rights in schools has been emotional, powerful, and public. It's stretched across many decades. Students have rallied for the right to enter desegregated schools, have special education services, have the best teaching, have school choice. And now emerges a student voice around reasonable gun control and gun violence around all corners of this country. It is a compelling movement, just as all of the others have been. I think it is time to learn a lesson from the youth on their current demand. Watching students debate on the steps of capitals, using print and social media, they have modeled civility and fierce determination in advocating for gun control. It's a hard lesson to reckon, given just the tiny sampling of national data and the tragedies that we unfortunately witness. And our youth have said in no certain terms, if the adults and lawmakers in our nation's capital cannot take leadership in their own hands, we will. And they have done so with astonishing clarity. Their demands are very simple. Raise the age limit it takes to legally purchase a gun. Universal and strong background checks. The end of selling military-style weapons to civilians. The ability for a judge to remove a weapon from a person he or she deems is a threat to themselves. What's being said, if we listen carefully, is that the students are asking for reasonable leadership and for their protection. One honestly has to ask, where are the adults in national government when we so desperately need them on this issue? When a child asks not to be killed while learning math, we have come to a fork in the road of responsibility. The notion that has been circulated recently of arming teachers in schools, on the face of it, is insane. I can't physically in my mind imagine a kindergarten teacher anywhere in this country having to adjust his gun and holder while kneeling on the carpet to begin the lesson and counting the days of the week or celebrating a 5-year-old's birthday. Given some of the data in this country on the disproportionality of discipline, it is very tough for me to visualize an assistant principal with a gun strapped to her side questioning a student on a misstep of behavior. We have to also stop the dichotomous argument that either gun control is the answer or greater mental health. They are not mutually exclusive. They are best served when they are together as part of an approach to this epidemic in America. I think from the youth in Stockton to the youth across America, we are proudly witnessing the actuality of that phrase, out of the mouths of young children comes truth. Dare we be reminded, as adults, that sometimes the hardest part of leadership is listening. Let this remembrance be both somber and action-oriented to listen to the demands of our youth and act upon them and serve them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dacey. We will now have a video presentation. This film was created for the 25th anniversary. Our committee felt it was important enough to show it again. It was created by Peter Peng and Heng Sok Ong.
On January 17, 1989, during the late morning hours, Patrick Purdy entered a playground at Grover Cleveland School in central Stockton. The playground was filled with children on recess. Purdy opened fire on the children and several teachers with an assault rifle.
I was 8 years old. During that time, I was playing at recess. I just saw kids running. Some people fell on the ground, and then I heard screams, and it was just a devastating thing to see.
One of the girls in my class, like, she was just all bloodied up and such, so the teacher had us help her bring her in, and then she told us all to sit in our class, or at our desk.
Up until we waited in the principal's office for a while to hear the news because they were looking for my sister. At that moment, they couldn't locate her. They didn't know where she was at.
And that one of our students in there was really, really hurt. Her name was Ram.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that I was shot until I was told that I was shot. You know, I knew I was hurt, you know. And, it wasn't until I got back in the classroom where it was just, you started to make sense of what happened.
But as I went to the playground, as I met that officer, I saw what I thought at that moment was just some coats on the floor or on the ground in the playground. And later I found out those were bodies of some children who were shot.
It was like an overload, like a senses overload. I was seeing it, but it was surreal. It was like, you know, and it sounds kind of odd to say it, but it was dreamlike.
I think adrenaline takes over, something takes over, because you just make these decisions like, you know, you don't have time to think it over. You just kind of act. And you don't have the whole picture. It was much, much worse, if that's possible, to come home and look at it over and over again on television.
Our hearts cannot explain for the loss and those kids and the teachers that were bullied.
It's burning hot like fire, my intrinsic desire, vaporizing every breath I make. It's crying to be heard, just like a little bird. It wants to fly relentlessly. So while you are gazing at moonbeams, realize someone else Why don't you set your soul at ease? Listen to what it needs. What is asking for? Always wanting more. Let it go. Where the mountains seem so high, lift your head up to the sky. You will see you are free, free to fly. Listen to what your heart needs. What it's asking for.
Our next speaker is the Senior Director of the YMCA of San Joaquin County and a survivor of the Cleveland school shooting. Please welcome Mike Van.
Wow. It's still fresh in our memories. And I have a couple of questions for everybody, and this is also for the guests behind me. How many of you were students? Please stand up if you were students at that school when it happened. Please stand up. And this is for everyone else, including the people who are behind the cameras, behind the desk. How many of you have been impacted or know somebody who's been impacted by gun violence? Please stand up. Wow. So I asked those two questions because, and you can go ahead and take a seat. I asked those two questions because prior to coming here, I had to talk to a friend who also went to that school, and he is struggling every single day. The impact that day had on him is still going on. I always say one bullet can damage a whole entire community. And sometimes it's not just for that one day. Sometimes it goes on for generations. For me, I was a 7-year-old boy, second grader. Even though I was blessed, I'm still here. That day, a part of me died. The first thing I did when I went back to school the following week was to go look at where I was standing. And on that wall, there was a bullet hole. So, as I was growing up, I was supposed to be dead. I wasn't brave, but I didn't fear dying. Living in Stockton, living in a rough area, you know, where you hear gunshots every day, I didn't mind getting a bullet going through me. Didn't really care about my own life, and struggled with it for a very long time till, you know, and I have the support from my family and things like that, but when you go through something like that, the scars may not be external, but internal. And it took me till I had an opportunity to work for the YMCA. Didn't want to work there, it was a job, right? Just like everybody else, when you first get your job, you needed a job. And I helped this one child, and that child did not look like me. You know, I'm Cambodian, he wasn't. And at that time when I first met him, I could care less what happened with him. Right? I ended up helping this child, and one day he gave me a hug and he said, "Thank you for caring about me." And what I found out about this child was when he was growing up, here in Stockton. He was bullied, he was abused, he was neglected by his own family members. And he showed signs that he needed help. And I was the only one at that time, when I saw him, as part of my job, even though it's just a job for me at that time, I approached this child and say, "Hi, how are you doing? Are you hungry?" And he said, "Yes." But then I asked myself, what if nobody approached this child? Maybe one day, maybe in 30 years, this child wakes up, grabs his bags, load it in a car, drive it to a school, set it on fire, get on campus, fire a few shots, and kill himself. So I think for me, it's choices. Everybody in here have a choice. I had a choice at that time to say, what do I want to do with my life? I went to school for computer science, not because necessarily I like computers, but so that I don't have to work with people. Because of that day, I didn't trust nobody. But I realized that all of us have the power to make a difference. And it's not just gun control and things like that, and that's part of it, and we do need that. But I challenge every single one of you right now to take your phone out once this is over and look through your contacts and see who you haven't contacted the last few weeks, and just call them and say, "Hey, how are you doing? I care about you, I love you, you matter." Because we don't know if they need to hear that at that time. Somebody in this world needs to hear that at that time, at this moment, because in a room full of people, we can all still feel alone. Thank you.
Is Kwong here? Okay. Then we have the ballet. Oh, that's Kwong? Okay, sorry. You're supposed to be up here on stage with us. Another survivor of the shooting, our next speaker, is now a counselor at Franklin High School here in Stockton. Please welcome Kwong Nguyen.
Give me 1 minute here. I want to thank everyone in the audience today for attending the 30th anniversary of the Cleveland shooting. And not forget about what happened that day. For me, it started out just like any other day, learning my multiplication tables, learning how to read, and running around recess. But when I finished lunch that day and went outside to play, my whole life changed. Excuse me. I am blessed. I left that school a day unscathed. In that moment, I was more worried about my brothers. I can only hope and pray while I was leaving the hallways that nothing happened to them. They were second graders and third graders at that time. And thankfully, I found them among the chaos and the aftermath of what had just happened. I know years later, that was one of the fortunate ones. It is all, without a doubt, why I feel so fortunate about that incident is due to my family's support, especially from my parents. My mother was the rock of the family. She provided unconditional support and love in the years after, until her passing in 2017. My father worked away from most of my childhood to provide for the family. But when he was there, he was the best father anybody could have asked for. In the years after that day, my brothers and I rarely speak about the events. But we know we are there to support one another if anything do come up. The final thought. I have a 6-year-old nephew. His father was there that day. I know for certain he has never told his son about what happened and probably never will. But I'm reminded that in the years after the shooting, there has been too many of our children killed by firearms in our school. It has to stop. I can't help but think if this ever happened to my nephew, how would he be? Let's not have that conversation and work together to find a permanent solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now we have a performance from the Khmer Ballet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lon Chan.
Hi, my name is Morrison.
We are members and representatives of the Modern Khmer Performing Arts. We are locally based here in Stockton, California, and this is our first year as an established organization. We outreach to the community by showcasing traditional Khmer dances. We provide dance lessons to our students. They also learn Khmer language, Khmer traditional arts, history, and culture. We also network with other organizations locally and out of city to build a stronger foundation for the Cambodian community. We emphasize the importance of perpetuating culture and humanities for the art. Khmer dances is our contribution to these subjects. Our main goal and vision is to educate, empower, and collaborate the community through traditional arts of Khmer dances. This organization will serve as a foundation for exemplifying leadership, exercising creative works, and demonstrating professional networking for the youth and community. And if you would like to learn more about our organization, or if you're interested, please feel free to talk to one of us, and we'll be out there. And I will hand it over to Morrison, and he will explain more about the dance forms.
Hi, everyone. So before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about the essence and nature of Khmer ballet dance. The essence and nature of Khmer dance can be traced back to more than a century ago. Dancers and musicians and prophet all formed together to serve as a form of communication directly between the heavenly beings and humans. Reasons like bringing rain to a drought, bringing prosperity to the Khmer people in their kingdom, or even calling upon ancestors before battles for protection. In the Cambodian classical repertoire, every gesture interprets, symbolizes, and expresses unique depictions of myths, legends, and tales passed down from generation to generation. So today we present Robam Jumbo. The name in itself means to deliver the blessing. It's used as an opening performance for special ceremonies, spiritual rituals, and special occasions. In this specific dance, dancers depict angels descending down from the heavens and to dance in unison to personify unification. And particularly a highlight of the dance is the toss flower, which represent blessings of happiness, longevity, good fortune, and health. Enjoy.
Our next speaker has flown in from Chicago to be with us here tonight. He is also a survivor and is now working in real estate. Please welcome Samnang Lim.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Samnang Lim. I was one of the survivors at the Cleveland Elementary School shooting. I was shot and fortunately came out truly blessed. I wrote a short poem just to express how I feel about that tragic day. And not just that tragic day, but also the tragedies that we continue to face every single day since then. 30 years flashes by in the blink of an eye. 30 years stolen in a flash, a bang, with the pull of a trigger. It's not right to steal someone's light, their life, the right to live, yet it happened. While you fight about whose rights are more right, it happens. More love, more hate, more guns, no guns. It happens and continues to happen. While you march together in arm to protest those marching armed and armed, it happens. While you pray to the ones above, we bury our loved ones below, it happens. While you offer us your condolences, hearts and prayers, it happens. While you arm our teachers, our hall monitors, our janitors, it happens. While we look to our leaders for answers, as we close our eyes, our hearts and ears to the ones right in front of us, it happens. I say look, hear, and feel what is right in front of you. See the person right next to you. For the ones we neglect, in turn infects and inflicts the wounds that destroys the light, the life of the ones next to you, the ones behind you, the ones in front of you, and maybe even yourself. Today we remember those lost in a tragedy from 30 years ago. And today we remember all the lives stolen from all the shootings since then, because it continues to happen. Today we say never again. Look, listen, love, and maybe it will never happen to you or the loved ones around you. I struggled to write this over the months leading up to today, and I really didn't understand why until I was done. For these 30 years, it's been a constant struggle, fought with questions, anger, and emotions abound. The why, the how, and then the search for answers and reasons for them. What has been 30 years to others has been like 30 seconds for me. I see the pain, and I feel the anguish, and I have the nightmares that other survivors still feel and live through today. I just want to say I see you, I hear you, and I feel you. As we mark the 30-year anniversary of the Cleveland Elementary School shooting, we remember those lost and those who survived and those who continue to suffer to this very day. We remember the pain that one person can inflict on countless others. We remember the day that changed so many of us here today. And we remember in hopes that we never forget that this can happen and continues to have to happen over and over. We remember and we must never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Samnang. Now, with our awards, we'll perform a spoken word presentation created especially for tonight's event.
This room has wonderful acoustics, and I hope that every time we hear a bell ring for one of the children that were shot and their lives were taken from them, and every time someone says never again, it'll actually stick. Some were 5 and some were 6. They rode on horses made of sticks. Some wore black and some wore white. All were targets in the line of fire. Bang, bang. The shots rang out. Bang, bang. They hit the ground. Bang, bang. That awful sound. Bang, bang. 5 kids were shot down somewhere in America, like Stockton. 5 bodies were piled up on the climbing statistics of children gunned down in school shootings. 5 more tombstones planted after a rain of bullet shells. 5 more thoughts to add to trending prayers, pleading for peace through praying hands emojis and crosses composed of pixels. I'm sure Cleveland School remembers. I'm sure it remembers the days when kids were prepped to be book smart and not casket sharp. I'm sure Cleveland School remembers the days when kids would find Waldo hiding amongst a crowded floor, not identifying his bloody corpse in the morgue. It remembers when kids were finding a seat in the lunchroom, not finding a place to hide in the classroom. Let's change the curriculum of catastrophe. Let's teach from our trauma and our tears. Let's reclaim our hallways and playgrounds. Let's bring flowers to our teachers in the morning instead of flowers to our teachers because they're mourning. I know this is a lot to handle. I know it's a lot of lessons at once. But if you need a tutorial of transformation, ask Cleveland School, because Cleveland School remembers. Thank you.
Is Valentino here? Okay. So now from the Cesar Chavez High School, the a cappella jazz choir.
Check 1, check 1. Check 2, check 2, check 2.
Check 3, check 3. 1, check 1. Oh, check 1, check 1. Check 2, check 2. Check 3, check 3.
In
try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Yeah. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. We'll live as one. No. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. Or hunger, a brotherhood of men. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So wonderful having our youth represented this evening. Now, from the Office of Violence Prevention, please welcome the Outreach Coordinator, Keelan Henderson. And after Keelan's address, we will have a slideshow presentation of some of the victims in our community that have fallen to gun violence. This slideshow was created by one of our members, Patty Dahl. Keelan?
want to thank the Cleveland School Remembers team and the Brady Campaign's local chapter for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Office of Violence Prevention and its support of this 30th anniversary Cleveland school shooting event. So moments like this, when we remember those who are lost to inconceivable tragedies, our first order is usually to have a moment of silence. And in an attempt to honor or show respect to the lives that were lost, and also to the families who were affected, to the innocent victims who were injured and suffered the trauma of a memory that will last forever, we mark these moments of silence and include them on our agendas. But my thought here tonight is to inspire everyone to use this moment, this space really as a bullhorn for peace, to continue gathering and unifying ourselves against the acts of gun violence in every school, in every city, and in every nation, and to inspire you really as an individual to navigate from a place of respected silence and into one where your voice is heard. And I believe tonight's event is a step in that direction. So here collectively, our voice is way louder than any hate crime or act of violence could ever be. It travels beyond the low valleys of hate and pits of rage and reaches to a place that resonates with all humanity. It reaches a high place, a place of hope, a place of healing, and a place of peace. So from everyone at the Office of Violence Prevention, we stand with you tonight. And we also, because we'll have our moment of silence later on, we stand with you in that as well. But we also stand and join our voice with yours as we speak against gun violence everywhere. Thank you for this opportunity.
At this time, we will have a special bell ringing ceremony to remember the 5 children that died 30 years ago today.
bell ceremony commemorates the 5 children lost on January 17, 1989 at the Cleveland Elementary shooting. Ratanak Aur, Ram Chun, Sokim An, Un Lim, Thuy Tran. We now ask that those of you here with us tonight who have also lost someone to gun violence or have been affected by gun violence to please stand now. That means in any way, wounded or just affected in how you feel about going to work or to a theater or to church. Now we ask for everyone to stand while we commemorate our loss with a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
And now here to share her remarks, please welcome District Attorney Tori Verber Salazar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years ago, when this occurred, I was completing the first year of my job as an intern at the San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office when the call came to our victim advocacy services. And you didn't want to believe it. You didn't think in a town like Stockton, a place that I have been born and raised, a city that I am so proud of, where the best people in America live, something like this could happen. And when they called in, they said, go, head towards the school and provide any services you can. I remember driving and there were no cars on the street. The air was so thick, it felt like I couldn't breathe. I was so scared, and so were all of us. And I remember thinking, there's nobody on the street, there's nobody in the sidewalk, where is everybody? Where did they go? And I realized that they went in their homes to be with their loved ones, to cherish that time and that sanctity and that safety, and to pray to God when they come out, what they heard, what they knew was not true, that what happened on that day could never happen. It just could not. How could such darkness and madness come to our community? And when I got there, I couldn't move. I was so scared. I was 21 years old. I had never seen such pain and suffering, such hurt. Parents crying in agony, wondering if their child was what that was taken that day. And I remember running into my friend and my mentor and a hero from that day, as there were many heroes in that day, Diane Braitress. And she said to me, I said to her, Diane, I can't even move, I'm so scared. And she said, I said, I've never seen such pain and suffering and darkness. And she said to me, from great darkness comes great courage. See the courage, find the courage, and every day make a difference and make sure this never happens again. And we went to work that day, 30 years ago, and I never have left the office because every day we do work to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And I didn't know at that time that I would spend the next 30 years working on homicides. Every year, hundreds over the last 30 years. And I'll share with you, with every homicide that occurs since I've been elected in 15, I go to, and the air is still as thick, the fear is just as great. The harm is just as deep as it was that day 30 years ago, excuse me. And I use that to drive, to make a difference. And I remember that, and I look to all of you, and I know you too use that pain and suffering, not to give up, not to forget, not to work harder, but to do just the opposite, to work harder and to make a difference in our community. You could have left, you could move away, you could have given up, you could have said no more, any way along the journey, but you never did, because you're Stocktonians, and we never give up, and we never stop believing that there will and is going to be a better day than that day 38 years ago. So we work hard, and we work harder, and we do more programming, and we heal more people in our community, and we work with the trauma in our community. We address our issues, we face them head on, and we live each and every day. And today, I tell you, we have 44% less homicides than we did last year. And today we have 31% less homicides than we had, violent shootings than we had last year. And somebody asked me, what was the difference? It's not one agency or one person, it's all of us. It's this community. It's each and every one of you. You are the reason that we are in a better place, going in a better direction, and honoring the men and women and children that we have lost these last 30 years and beyond. Because we never gave up. We never stopped believing. And we continue to work harder. And we will never stop working. Because we have to make sure that this never happens to anyone, ever again. So I say to you today, I honor those we lost and those who were injured. I respect and admire the courage of the heroes of the day. The teachers, the principals, the parents, the fire, the police, the ambulance, the doctors, the nurses, the community that brought food and flowers, the communities that prayed, the communities that cried, the communities that stood tall in the darkest hours. That's you, ladies and gentlemen. You're the courage. You're the strength, and you're the reason the community is going in the right direction and doing better. So I thank you for what you do every day to make a difference. I thank you for never forgetting, but also continuing to strive to find solutions to heal our community and make it well. And I hope each and every day that we do better to honor these loved and cherished ones that have gone on before us. Thank you.
And now, from Tucson, Arizona, for a sending blessing, please welcome Reverend Alan Fields.
My name is Alan Field. I was the pastor of Faith Lutheran Church. It sat next to Cleveland Elementary School. On that afternoon, I was standing in the parking lot when the shooting started. We opened the church's fellowship hall and we used it to connect frantic parents with classrooms that were brought over one classroom at a time while the school was in lockdown. It was the building that people learned if their child was a victim. And I'll never forget the faces of frantic parents hearing that horrible news, especially Scotty Barton's grandma, Thelma, whose face just exploded in frantic fear that Scotty had been shot. He's a member of Faith. We thought back in 1989 that this tragedy was so painful that it would never happen again. But we know that that was and is not the case. So how do we go on? How do we face the next tragedies? Because you know they're going to happen. How do we pray for the next victim? The next victim's family? How do we stand with confidence? And how can we stand with peace? We shall do so. We will. When we understand that peace is greater than violence, and love is greater than hate, and hope is greater than any fear or darkness. What we know is though the darkness of this night has already wrapped its arms around us, you'll experience it when you go out those doors. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and the light of a new day will embrace us. Because we are people of the light and of the day. But we cannot remain silent. We may grieve as senseless violence happens, and we may die a little bit every time someone is killed. But we are people of the day and of the light. And that light is constant. And that light is comforting. And that light shines upon every shadow, empowering everything that's good. So this night, our hope is fixed in the light of tomorrow. So may our tomorrows be bright with hope, bright with peace, bright with love, and more, surrounded by holy grace. But please, don't remain silent anymore. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Phil. And can we bring the mariachi to the stage, please? And now, from the Cesar Chavez High School, the Cesar Chavez Mariachi Band.
Test, test. Good evening, everybody. Like she said, this is Cesar Chavez High School Mariachi. For those of you that don't speak Spanish or non-Spanish speakers, tonight we will be honoring your loved ones with a song titled Amor Eterno, which speaks of an eternal love that goes on even after your loved one is no longer physically with you.